Calaroga Shark Media. Hello and welcome to Ghost, Scary Stories. This episode is titled The Pumpkin Patch Haunting Part 2, The Jack-o'-lantern's Revenge.
The sun rose on October 31st, casting long shadows across Thornwood Pumpkin Patch. Emily hadn't slept a wink, her mind racing with the events of the previous night. As she stumbled out of her farmhouse, she was greeted by an unwelcome sight. Sheriff Mark Hawkins's patrol car pulling up the gravel driveway. "Morning, Emily," Hawkins called out as he stepped from the vehicle. "Thought I'd check in on you. Any more ghostly visitors?" Emily's laugh was hollow. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Hawkins's expression softened. "Try me." Over strong coffee, Emily recounted her midnight encounter with Jack-o'-lantern's spirit and the flying pumpkins. To her surprise, Hawkins didn't immediately dismiss her story. "I did some digging after I left yesterday," he said, his voice low. "You were right about Jack's death being suspicious. I found some old case files that were supposed to have been destroyed. Emily, I think Jack was murdered." Emily's mug clattered against the table. "Murdered? By whom?" "That's the thing," Hawkins said, leaning in. "The prime suspect was a Thornwood, your great-grandfather, to be precise." The color drained from Emily's face. "That's impossible. My family's not even from here. I only bought this place because of the name coincidence." Hawkins shook his head. "Your grandmother left town young, changed her name, but the Thornwoods were a founding family here, and they had a long-standing feud with the Landons over this very patch of land." Emily's mind reeled. Could it be true? Was she somehow connected to this century-old murder? Before she could process this revelation, a scream pierced the air. They rushed outside to find Emily's farmhand, Tony, backing away from the pumpkin patch in terror. The pumpkins!" he stuttered, pointing a shaking finger toward the field. Emily and Hawkins followed his gaze. There, carved into the side of every pumpkin in sight, was a single word: revenge. "Holy shit!" Hawkins began, but he was cut off by a rumbling sound. The ground began to shake, and pumpkins started to roll of their own accord, gathering in the center of the field. "It's happening again," Emily whispered. As they watched in horror, the pumpkins piled atop one another, forming a massive, vaguely humanoid shape. A sickly orange glow emanated from within, and two flames burst to life where eyes should be. The pumpkin colossus raised an arm, pointing directly at Emily. When it spoke, it was with Jack-o'-lantern's otherworldly voice, magnified 100-fold. "Emily Thornwood!" it boomed. "Your blood must pay for the sins of your ancestors!" Panic erupted as the creature began to move, its steps shaking the earth. Farmhands fled screaming, and even Hawkins took a step back, his hand instinctively moving to his holstered gun. "We need to evacuate the town," he said, his voice shaky. "Whatever this thing is, it's not stopping here." Emily stood rooted to the spot, her mind racing. "No," she said suddenly. "I need to end this, now." She turned and sprinted toward the old barn, Hawkins calling after her. Inside, she rummaged through a box of old documents she'd found when she first bought the property. There, at the bottom, was what she was looking for: a small, leather-bound journal. As she flipped through the pages, her eyes widened. It was her great-grandfather's diary, and there, on the final page, was a confession. Emily ran back outside, clutching the journal. The pumpkin monster was lumbering toward the town, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. "Jack!" she screamed. "Jack-o'-lantern! I know the truth!" The creature paused, its flaming eyes turning toward her. "My great-grandfather, he did kill you," Emily continued, her voice breaking. "But it was an accident. You were arguing about the land and he pushed you. You fell and hit your head on a rock. He panicked, covered it up, but he never meant for it to happen." The pumpkin colossus stood still, as if processing this information. "He was sorry, Jack," Emily pleaded. So sorry that he spent the rest of his life trying to make amends. This journal, it's full of his guilt, his plans to make things right. He left the patch to your family in his will, but they'd already moved away. That's why it's changed hands so many times. No one knew." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the massive pumpkin figure began to crumble. As it fell apart, a spectral shape emerged from within. Jack-o'-lantern, looking more human now, the anger gone from his translucent features. I didn't know," Jack's ghost said, his voice softer now. "All these years I thought—" "I'm so sorry for what happened to you," Emily said, stepping closer. "Can you forgive us? Can you finally rest?" Jack's form flickered, a sad smile crossing his face. "Forgiveness? Yes, perhaps it's time." He looked at Emily curiously. "You know, you have his eyes. Kind eyes." With that, Jack's ghost began to fade, the oppressive atmosphere lifting from the pumpkin patch. As he disappeared entirely, a warm breeze swept through the field, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and, faintly, candy corn. Hawkins approached Emily, his eyes wide. "I've been sheriff in this town for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like that. Are you okay?" Emily nodded, suddenly feeling exhausted but relieved. "I think it's over. Really over." As they stood there surveying the mess of pumpkin carnage, Hawkins chuckled. "You know, the Halloween festival is supposed to start in a few hours. What are we going to do about—" He gestured at the decimated patch. Emily looked around, a slow smile spreading across her face. "You know what? I think I have an idea." That night, Thornwood Pumpkin Patch hosted the most spectacular Halloween festival the town had ever seen. The smashed pumpkins were repurposed into a massive jack-o'-lantern display, telling the story of Jack-o'-lantern and the patch's haunted history. Children squealed in delight at the spooky tale, while their parents marveled at Emily's creativity. As midnight approached, Emily stood at the edge of the field, watching the festivities. She felt a presence beside her and turned to see Sheriff Hawkins. "Quite a day," he said, offering her a cup of hot cider. Emily took it gratefully. "Quite a century, more like." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Hawkins spoke again. "So, Miss Thornwood, think you'll be sticking around, or is one haunting enough to send you packing like the others?" Emily looked out over the patch, at the laughing families and glowing pumpkins. In the distance, she could have sworn she saw a familiar spectral figure smiling and nodding at her before vanishing into the night. "Are you kidding?" she said, grinning. "After all this? I'm just getting started." As the town clock began to chime midnight, Emily raised her cider in a toast. "Happy Halloween, Sheriff. Here's to new beginnings." And somewhere, in the cool autumn breeze, she could have sworn she heard a friendly whisper. "Happy Halloween, Emily Thornwood, and thank you."
Ghost is a Calaroga Shark media production, written and hosted by Alexander Ian McIntyre, produced by Mark Francis, executive producers Mark Francis and John McDermott. Portions of this podcast may have been created with the assistance of AI.
This show, along with hundreds of others from Calaroga Shark Media, is available commercial-free on any player, hassle-free. Just look for the link in the episode or show notes. Ghost now has merch. Find shirts, mugs, and more with the Ghost logo for sale at our merch store. There's free shipping and 10% off now with the coupon NEWMERCH10. Did we say there's free shipping? Check out all the goods at calaroga.com, that's CALOROGA.com, or just look for the link in the show notes. Thanks for supporting the show, we really appreciate it.
Calaroga Shark Media.